Multifamily real estate does not go up and down at the exact same rate across the United States. Real estate is always local, and every market is different.
Welcome to the Freedom Point Real Estate Podcast, where we talk about creating more time freedom through passive real estate investing. Passive investing in real estate challenges conventional investment wisdom. We are passionate about learning and sharing resources with others who are ready to transform their investing mindset. Quick disclaimer as always, I am not a CPA, I am not an attorney or a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, not telling you or anyone else what to do. The views and opinions expressed in these podcasts are provided for education and informational purposes only and are not necessarily the views of my employer, ADP. I'm glad you're here. Now let's dig in.
Welcome back, Freedom Point listeners. I'm your host, Jeremy Dyer. In today's episode, what we're talking about are the 4 phases to the real estate market cycle and why that's important. So whether we're talking about stocks, bonds, oil, commodities, gold, silver, crypto, whatever asset class, they all have market cycles. Things go up and things go down and remain the same sometimes. So we're going to be talking about the market cycle as it pertains to real estate. The first 2 things to keep in mind for this episode is that there's always an opportunity, in my opinion, during each phase of the market cycle. Some people get scared when they hear the word recession. Recessions are where so many millionaires and billionaires have made the majority of their money. The second thing to keep in mind is that depending upon the market that we're talking about, just realize that every market is different. Just because Phoenix, Arizona is at a certain stage of a market cycle doesn't mean that Columbus, Ohio is in the same market cycle. Multifamily real estate does not go up and down at the exact same rate across the United States. Real estate is always local and every market is different. So with that said, I'm going to quickly give you the 4 stages, then we're going to dive in and look at some examples. So the 4 stages of the market cycle are recession, recovery, expansion, and hypersupply. What comes after hypersupply is we typically go right back to recession. Also keep in mind that market cycles can take years and sometimes even decades to go through one complete cycle. So let's look at a few different examples. So a market that would be in recession today, we're talking in the middle of 2023, would be, for example, Fresno, California. How do we know this? How do we know that Fresno, California is in a recession? Well, we can look at the following factors that define the recessionary period. In a recession, there's usually increased vacancy. That means less units that are being rented. There's moderate to low new construction that's happening. There's a low absorption rate, which means that the units available are not getting filled up. There's low to negative employment growth, and there's low to negative rent growth. Now, as we enter into the recovery phase, what you often see is decreasing vacancy, low new construction, moderate absorption rates, low to moderate employment growth, slow but yet uptrending rental growth rate, and an example of a market that's in a recovery today could be Portland, Oregon, just to use one as an example. In the expansion phase, you'll often see things like decreasing vacancy, moderate to high new construction, high absorption rates, moderate to high employment growth, medium to high rental rate growth, and an example of an expansion today would be Orlando, Florida, to name one of many. And finally, that brings us to hypersupply. And the things that you look at for in that phase of the market cycle will be increasing vacancy rates, moderate to high new construction, low to negative absorption rates, moderate to low employment growth, medium to low rental rate growth. An example of a hypersupply today, one of many, would be Denver, Colorado. As I mentioned earlier, there's opportunities to be had in each market cycle. So if we think about a recession, the good opportunity that comes in a recession is that you might get a larger discount or a lower purchase price on a piece of real estate than what you could have gotten previously. And especially if you hold it longer term, where that market could potentially turn into a recovery and eventually an expansion phase, at which point you might look at selling. The good thing about investing in a recovery phase is that the recession is now over and you're starting to build the ground and foundation for that market to get its footing back on the ground and about to then enter into that expansion phase. Many markets right now are still in the expansion phase or the latter stages of that especially, and that's a great opportunity if you want to dive in to a high growth market with strong fundamentals. It may not be a good business plan to jump in and think that you're going to aggressively bump the rents way up or that you're going to get in and get out as fast as you can and do some kind of fix and flip. This is a stage where you might look at the market that historically has done over the long term and has had strong fundamentals and tends to uptrade over decades of a market expansion, for example. And an example of a market like this would be San Francisco, California, which happens to be in more or less a hypersupply today. One major takeaway here for all investors listening is you want to know the property that you're buying or about to invest in. You want to know what phase of the market cycle it's in and what's about to come next. And you want to stack that up against the proposed business plan of the sponsor. So again, using the example of investing during a hypersupply phase of the market cycle may not be a good idea. For short-term investors looking to enter and exit and flip something around in a short time frame, you might instead choose to wait for the latter stages of the recession phase or maybe the entry levels of a recovery phase so that you have a shorter time horizon for high growth potential. So something to think about here for today and for the week. I hope that you found some value in this episode. If I can help you or anyone else learn the game of passive real estate investing, please let's connect on LinkedIn or at startingpointcapital.com. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you for hanging out with us today and for listening to the Freedom Point podcast powered by Starting Point Capital. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on this show should be considered financial advice. Before making any financial decision, please consult with a professional. This show is copyrighted by the Freedom Point podcast. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting. If you're interested in connecting, you can find contact information at startingpointcapital.com.